Hey guys, my name is Matthew, and this is my review for The Women of the Bible Speak, The Wisdom of 16 Women and Their Lessons for Today by Shannon Bream. Here we go. It's hard for me to detail exactly what kind of book The Women of the Bible Speak is. I think the best use for it would be kind of as Bible study material for a small group to go through, but I think it could be used as a reference material as well, or you could read it straight through just for personal enjoyment. Basically, she details 16 women from the Bible. She groups them off into pairs of 2, so there's 8 pairs plus 1 additional woman in the intro, and she just kind of chronicles or details their lives from what we know from the Bible. The book is really well written, and I was surprised by how much I enjoyed it. In this review, I'll be listing a lot of my observations about the book, starting with some of the things that I enjoyed the most, and then going through the list through to some things that I didn't enjoy as much. At the end of this review, I'll be giving you my recommendation, who is the book for. So to start with, I was surprised by how scriptural this was, how much it relies on the biblical text, and it's almost in its entirety, actually. There's not a whole lot of reaching outside of the text. What there is that reaches outside is good cultural context, and I think she did a really, really good job. Maybe I shouldn't have been surprised, but I've read a lot of books that were for women, which I would actually say this book is not for women, but it almost looks like it's marketed like it is. And I'd say I kind of have a bad taste in my mouth based on some of those books. And then to add to it, it's written by a Fox News anchor, which is not necessarily a bad thing, but it could be, you know what I mean? And so I don't watch a lot of news. I don't know who this person is, except that she has Fox kind of attributed to her name. And that could result in some poor hermeneutics. I've seen it done before. Poor, and that combination made me a little nervous. This book was really well done because she really sticks to the scripture, to the Old and New Testament that she pulls from, and I really appreciated how much she really sticks in the Bible, almost in the entirety. There's also a lot more depth in this than I was expecting. Again, you throw like a Fox News or like a celebrity name onto something, and sometimes it just is missing the depth. It's just kind of a fluff piece that's interesting, and we have all these anecdotes in it and stories from my life and whatever else. And this is not this book. This book was really well done and had a lot of depth. I actually learned some really cool things, and I checked out some of those facts to make sure that they're true. But I really enjoyed this book a lot for the depth that it had. Something that's sometimes hard to do is to have that kind of depth, especially when talking about a biblical text, and maintain readability. This book was really easy to read. I think you could read it straight through, kind of like a narrative. One strength of Shannon Bream's is that she does a good job of integrating text from the Bible in a way that it's very readable. There's some texts from the Bible that I think are just hard to read. They're harder for a modern reader to understand and to read through. So she does a really good job of summarizing the parts that are harder to read, and then integrating sometimes even full kind of paragraphs from the Bible, but in a really interesting way that makes it readable. So she summarizes the right bits and then puts in the right sections from the Bible to make the whole thing readable, and it feels easy to read. I really enjoyed the way that she did that. I kind of mentioned this already, but the text is not written for women. I actually think this would be a great resource for a men's Bible study to do. This would be a great resource for a pastor to have. This would be a good thing for men or women, for both, and that this is not a story or a narrative or a text that's written just for women to try and, even the applications are not based for just women, even though the subject matter is women's lives. We still, as men, can learn so much from women's lives in the Bible and outside of the Bible, and we should be. So I think this is a great text for men or women. Another thing I really enjoyed is the way that she emphasizes the importance of women in Scripture, not as a secondary character. She, while some parts of the Bible are obviously men-centric, she's pointing out the places where even in men-centric stories, the women were not just vital, but they were beyond vital. They're of utmost importance. The idea from the very first woman we see was that she needed to help Adam, and not because there was something lacking in Eve, because there was something lacking in Adam. And she doesn't necessarily point that out, but that idea is thrown throughout the book, that the women are actually vital. They're of utmost importance for the stories and the storylines that are going on. The Bible wouldn't exist the way it did without the women who were in the Bible. If their personalities were different, if the things they did were different, it would have changed the stories drastically. And so the importance of women in the Bible is not understated in this book, and I appreciated that. A couple things I didn't love as much. The first one is kind of the way that she paired off the different women. I think that the format kind of threw me just a little bit. I felt like sometimes it was a little bit repetitive, and some women that are paired, she really paired the same stories. So like Leah and Rachel are the same biblical story. And so when she went through Rachel's part first and then came back and went through Leah's, there were some good insights that we pick up from Leah, but the question remains, did she have to have her own story completely? It felt repetitive a little bit at times. The second one is super nitpicky, but I felt like there were a couple cases where she reached a little bit. And this wasn't the pattern in the book, but it was something that did happen where she reached a little bit outside of the biblical story. And when so much of this book was written not reaching outside the story, it makes it sound like that is part of the Bible. I'm not sure, like I said, it's super nitpicky. I'm not sure that things she said were wrong, but it just didn't fit the format of the rest of the book in the couple of small cases where she did reach, because the rest of it was written so well, and without reaching, those couple places did feel a little bit, like I said, reachy. So who is this book for? Well, actually, I recommend this book for anyone who's a Christian who has not done a lot of detailed work reading some of these stories from the Bible from a woman's perspective. It can be really easy to miss some really cool and important details. I learned a lot about Hagar. I learned a lot about even Esther and that story just by reading it from a more feminine perspective. So Shannon Bream does a great job of doing that. And I actually recommend this for men or women as a great Bible study resource, or just as an enjoying read that doesn't take a super long time to read through, but you can gain a lot of insight from. This has been my review of Women in the Bible Speak by Shannon Bream. If you've enjoyed this review, feel free to like and subscribe. Go ahead and look down in the description below. We have Amazon affiliate links where you can pick up this book. It doesn't cost you any extra, but it does help out the channel a lot. Thank you guys so much for watching, and as always, stay safe out there.